The next thing we're going to look at is a little bit about drawings and how Fusion works. So Fusion 360, like Inventor and SolidWorks, Creo and all the other tools, generates its 2D drawings from the 3D model. This is the area which most people view as Fusion's greatest weakness. It's an area for focus on development, but there is not a massive amount of push from the audience. The thing is, the main push seems to be from people who have been working with CAD tools for a long time, who want to use Fusion as a replacement tool in their organizations, whereas the hobbyist and individual will probably find that the tools available are good enough already for what they need. We're going to look at some of the drawing capabilities of Fusion. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to the drawing file I opened earlier. So if I go back now into this, so we'll go back to the model file that we've got here. If we take a close look, I mentioned yesterday that there aren't yet auxiliary views in Fusion 360. Well, at least not yet. We do have the ability though to create name views. So one thing to be aware of is, if I go in the top here, if parts are askew in the context of the overall design, so if we look at this crank arm now, which is it's not lining up parallel to the x-axis, it's a bit of askew. When working with Fusion 360, which bases drawing views less on geometry, or not on geometry, but instead bases views top, front, left, right, northeast, northwest, isometric, things like that, we have the ability also to do things like use a lookup option or look at option. So using this look at option at the bottom, if I select the crankshaft there, you'll notice it actually puts it in at 90 degrees. And then what I can do, I can actually create view. So in name view, sorry, that's where it is. Oh, fancy missing that. Looks like there's already been one created in there for the crank arm. But what I'll do anyway, right click, new name view, and I'll call this crank arm 2. So I don't use this very often, so I always forget where it actually is. So that's now our new view. So we've got that there. Our crank view. So you can see, the different views that we've got in here. We've now got this crank arm 2 that brings us on at 90 degrees to this particular face here. You can add these views in at any time. So what I'll do very quickly, luckily I've already saved this, so I'll just save it again. That's now saved in my area. So to start a new drawing, we can either go up to the file and new drawing from design, or again from an animation, which we're not touching on today. We can go straight into the drawing environment and do exactly the same there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go from design. It asks if I want the full assembly. So here there, asks if I want the full assembly, for which now I will do. Do I want to create a new drawing? Which again, this is a new drawing. Template or from scratch. So by the way, it's very easy to convert an AutoCAD template, its attributes, to a Fusion template. I can set the standard. So this I'm going to have ISO, and the sheet size, I might put it as A2 to start off with. If I select OK, what will happen next is Fusion 360 will create a border with a title block and start offering to place a drawing view. And a little pop-up box that comes up there. So we've got these options at the side here. So orientation. So I can, do I want a front view? What I'll do, I'll say we'll have a top view to start off with. I've got different visual styles. So I've got visible edges, hidden, visible and hidden, shaded, shaded with hidden. I've got an option here. I can either type in a manual scale, or I can just pick, I'm just going to pick 1:1 on this. Interface thread sizes, and what I'm going to do is just place that view in and select OK. So that's now created my initial top view. And that's how long it takes to generate it. The performance of drawings has really been advanced just in the last couple of months. Using the project view, up at the top now, looking at the tools. So we've got our base view. We can now go to projected view, or actually there's a short command P. Whilst we're in this mode, what Fusion wants us to do every time we come into these commands is, first of all, which view do I want to work with? So straight away I want to project a view. So if you hover over, again, it's telling me select a parent view. That's my parent view that I want to do. And this now is where I can move around. So I want a view up there, and I'm going to put a view over here. And I don't actually want it to be orientated that way. Actually, I prefer it to be that way. So what I can do is select that view there. Then when I want to finish, I right click, go OK, and it'll select them views for me. I can now, as I hover over, you'll notice when I select it, I get a little square. I can actually move these views now, so I can put that view up there and click. These three, because they're actually projected views from each other that are related, as I move them down, they are actually linked together. So if I was to try and move this outwards, the top view moves with it outwards. Top view, I can't move it sideways. I can only move it up and down in line with this particular view here. We can create a section view. So I wanted to create a section view of this. Again, sectional views. Again, select my parent view. This time it wants to know where I want to make my section through. So I could do a stagger, but for this I'm just going to come across, select, right click, continue. And then what I'll do, I can pull this up there. And you'll notice here on the sectional view, it gives me options of what do I want to actually section. So if I don't want to section the large gear there, so if I don't want to, if I click that, press OK, it's now not sectioned the gear, but it's sectioned everything else that's in there. Yeah. And again, just like anything else, that has to stay related and in line with my view that I've got. So if I come out a little bit, click on this one, I can just move that down. So I've got my sectional view. It's giving me a bit of annotation there. What I can also do is I can do a detail view. So if I want a detail of a certain area, click the icon straight away. What's the parent view? So if I click the parent view, I can then zoom in, and what it's asking me to do now is just draw a little circle around something. So if I did a circle there, and then bring that out, okay, it gives me a sectional view of B there. And I can modify, move things around. I can change the location of that, and you'll notice that I changed the location. Done, just undo that, I made it too small. I click this and move it. You'll notice that it moves the view. So they're all interrelated. The cross-hatching that I've got on here, I can actually modify as well. So if I double click it, there we go. Double click it, I can change the pattern, the factor, the angle. I wanted to change it 65 degrees. It will change it. Close that, and I can move stuff around. If I wanted to add some center lines here, so center line of this, center line between 2 points, sorry, so it's 1, 2, gives me a center line. If I wanted to do a center mark, I can actually just center mark something in a view. Center mark pattern, so if I move here, so let's see if I've got anything. There we go. Yep, so straight across. Okay, So I can do all things like that on here. I can also add dimensions in here. Very simple. There is a drop down box, so I can pick linear dimension, aligned, angular, radius for marking up all these. So that's quite easy to do. Now also what we can do in here is we can add another sheet. So down at the bottom, if I add a sheet, I can at any time, sheet settings, sheet size, I can change the sheet size. So if I want it to be A4 size, I change it. If I can change the orientation of the A4 size to be that way, I can do that. I can bring in a base view. I want to do, just going back to my original drawing here, if I now go to drawing from design, this time take away full assembly, select the components. So if I just want the crank arm itself, I want to add it to untitled. Yep, press OK. So now it started adding this crank arm in. Now the view itself, orientation, I can actually use my crank arm 2 now. So that's the one where I viewed on it on the side. I can change my scale, so I want to do 2:1. I can bring it in. Let's go back to just 1:1. Place that view. Project views. Again, very quickly, I can very easily project views from it. Okay, it's very simple. And what it's done, it's actually added this as a sheet onto my existing sheet. So it's all classed in the same. This is now sheet 3 of 3 down at the bottom. Just quickly remove back into this sheet. If I want to edit a view, so I want to change something on this, if I click, left click to select and then right click, edit view, I then got the option to change it to shaded in there. If I now close that, I've now got a shaded view. I can add text to it. So if I wanted to do, I could actually add text to my drawing and type text in there. So close that. Now also, if we're looking at, let's go back to this view here. If I wanted to add some dimensions onto this and I wanted to use a base dimension, what I'm going to do, first of all, I'll create a very simple dimension here in these two. There. Now you'll notice that it's put the dimension on the top. That's because it's actually pick sensitive. If I was actually to do it the other way around and select that going downwards, you'll notice that it's actually put it downwards. Now my dogs just seem to be barking for a minute, so if we just pause, I'm just going to make them quiet. So going back to this, it's pick sensitive, putting dimensions on. So if I wanted the dimension at the bottom, I'd pick the top line, then the bottom one, and the dimension would come at the bottom. We can also, in dimensions, do baseline dimensions. So if I select my baseline, and then very quickly, I can add more dimensions in. Oops, I pressed escape by accident then. So baseline dimensions, select your baseline, and then you can just select the other two, right click OK, and you've got your baseline dimensions there as well. So it's nice and simple and quick and easy. Again, down at the bottoms we've got some annotation settings. So you can pick the type of font you want, the size of the font. With the actual leaders on here, you can actually have the type of precision that you want. So if you want to change it down very quickly to 1 decimal place, back up again to 2 decimal places. You can also have displaying trailing zeros or not displaying. Now on this one, we can have the units. For these actual dimensions we've got on here, there is no displaying zeros that is required, but there is that option there. Back on here, there's lots of things we can do in here. So from this is the blank one that we had before. Sheet settings. Let's change the size again. Let's go to an A3 size. This time, what I'm going to do here is add in as a base view an isometric view. So from this, I'm going to go to an isometric. Now, which one do I want? It's not that one. It's just finding the right. Don't think that's right. That's the one I want. Change the scale up. See, it's probably a little bit too big. That. Let's change it 2 to 1. Half scale. And bring that in like that. And press OK. Now, one thing we can do with this, I'll probably actually make it a bit bigger if I wanted to, but that'll do for what we're doing. Over here, as we come along, we've got balloons that we can add. So I can add a balloon and picking up on various parts in here. So if I pick up on that, place it, 5, 4, 1, let's see, so just pick one more up. And you can very easily place these components around. Guide block there, pick up the guide block there, and it automatically picks up the numbers. Close that. One thing we can do is we can actually align these balloons. We can renumber them if we want. So I can actually change the numbers on these. I can renumber. I can do quite a lot with them. But what we can do here is we can actually align the balloons. So if I select the balloons to be aligned. Oops, let's try again. Align balloons. Select balloons. That one, that one, that one. OK, continue. Start point there. And you can see now I can align them balloons. And again, if I wanted to do it again, align balloons, select the balloons, right click, continue, select the start point, the end point. And it's very easy to quickly line these up. We can add a table. So automatically it brings in a table. I can place that table. And it picks up these components, and it picks up these details from the information that you've put within the drawing earlier or in your model. It picks it up quite easy and quite nice. So it's quite a good little thing. I tend to just use Fusion now for little projects at home and for mocking things up, especially if I'm looking at putting together something really quickly that I'm not sure if I want to make or not. It's just so quick to get things going and just to be able to explore an idea. And with drawings, you've got the ability to just generate those views, add some key dimensions, make sure you're able to print something out to keep track of what you're working on and go from there. I'm likely never going to make another one after this. So I'm not having to stick exactly to ISO or ANSI standards. Really doesn't matter for me. If you have a customer who is an absolute must, that they must have drawings that adhere to standards, must have workflows that allow anyone to be able to modify that design anywhere down the line without having to have one-to-one communication access, they don't need to be using Fusion. They need to be using Inventor. Sometimes that's the best conversation to be having with a customer, to help them really understand what the differences in the tools are and why it is important for them to be using the correct ones. We can create an exploded view too. If we go now, the way to do that, back into our model space. So we go back into here, into our model space. Let me just put the view. if we actually go into model and animation, what we actually can do from this, there's already it looks like there's already an animation that's already been started here. I'll just create a new one at the bottom, a clean storyboard. I'm not going to show you actually animation itself on what happens here, but I'm just going to go and use and select all the components there and explode all levels. Well, that's now just exploded my components here. I can increase or decrease the amount of explosion that's happened here if I just tick that. But what I then can do once I've done that is each one of these components, I can actually just transform it and move it to wherever I would like or feel that component will be best suited for an explosion drawing. Don't want to spend too much time on this, but I want to be able to show you how to quickly do this exploded view. So if I press OK, this is now storyboard 3. I'm just going to save it. Save. If I now go drawing from animation, storyboard 3, just going to add it to the untitled view. If I'd have named my drawing as crank arm or whatever it's going to reciprocate in saw internals, it would have come up with that. Create a new sheet, A3, press OK. Proceed with view placement, yeah. And let me just change the scale 1:1. Press OK. And we've now got our exploded view. And that matches our animation that we've done. And again, just like before, you can add balloons to each component very quickly. In fact, it's actually easier to do it here than it is to do it when it was fully assembled. One there, maybe that one there. Close, add your table, up in the top corner, and there we go. Very quick and simple, easy way to do an exploded drawing. We've also got the ability to export our drawings. So up at the top, we can output a PDF, DWG file, or a parts list can come off as a .csv file.